Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dark Side of the Ring Season 3B, the mid-season premiere here of Dark Side of the Ring, of course, is the ever-so-famous Plane Ride from Hell. So, before I really get going and started on this episode, there's somebody who I have to just explain her role in it. This episode sort of follows the story of a woman named Heidi Doyle, and she was the flight attendant on the Plane Ride from Hell. So let's get right into it with the actual Plane Ride from Hell. Um, so Heidi
I'm
Doyle,
sorry.
you're good. Heidi Doyle says that the plane was delayed due to weather in Connecticut, and that the delay only lasted between 20 minutes to 1 hour. Tommy Dreamer says that the delay lasted 7 hours. Adam, who do you believe in this scenario? Like, do you think it was a 20-minute rain delay on an international flight, or do you think it was a 7 hour rain delay on an international flight?
I think it was a 7 hour. I really do because, the situation they're in with 3 carts of alcohol and things like that. It's like, listen, it's just that's too much. That's too much out. Like it's just like I don't know. I believe more of the 7 hour occurrence because for them to drink that much and there were a lot of heavy drinkers on that plane ride and for them to be that blacked out and I just feel like it had to be 7 hours.
Yeah, so let's just keep in mind that this is before we've even taken off. That, yes, as Adam said, everyone agrees that at least 3 carts of alcohol were drank before takeoff. Um, RVD, Rob Van Dam, he would go on to say that not only were all these carts of alcohol used, but there was a lot of drug use, including H bombs, which there's a medical word for the pill. Anywho, you put it into liquid, it dissolves, and it basically passes out the person who is drinking it. Rob Van Dam then says that the boys on the road used to use these pills to get marks that were men to pass out and stumble around and look funny. And sometimes they would drug women and have their way with them. He wasn't talking about himself directly, but he had said that in some of the places he has worked, that was a regular occurrence. Uh, Boy, did they really breeze over that. I assume that we're supposed to take away he was referring to ECW. I don't know. Um, Boy, is that
And you
just
know that, and it's interesting you bring that up because, and that is funny. Well, like, which company is he really
yeah.
talking about there?
I mean, they were definitely keeping it very safe. Um,
Right?
Michael Hayes was drugged on the plane. Now, Michael Hayes at this point, I believe, was a road manager. Um, I believe that he was at this point deep in developmental as well. Um, Michael Hayes was drugged, obviously, and he had gotten up at some point. He had punched John Bradshaw Layfield in the face just because Bradshaw had been busted open the night before and wanted to bust open Bradshaw. Bradshaw responded by getting up, open hand slapping Michael Hayes and knocking him out. Once Michael Hayes
But
was
that
knocked,
was a hard. I'm sorry to
yeah,
cut you, but that was just a hard slap too
yeah.
because like JBL's 6'8". Like,
So once Michael Hayes was knocked out, X Pac, Sean Waltman, grabbed a pair of scissors and cut Michael Hayes' ponytail because Michael Hayes loved his ponytail. He loved his hair. It was like his signature. And X Pac did this because Michael Hayes didn't like him and tried to bury him. Um, at this point, and by the way, from what I understand, all of these things happen in quick succession. Like this is like pretty immediate. Um, Brock Lesnar then gets pranked by Kurt Hennig, who puts a bunch of shaving cream on his head and smacks it. Lesnar, of course, is a new signee, but he's this huge, muscular guy, real wrestler from the state of Michigan, as was Kurt Hennig back in his day. Both of these guys are like 6'5". You know, they're two huge guys who are slamming each other into seats, breaking overhead compartments, and finally the fight is stopped when they crash into the emergency exit door, and the boys get up fearing for their lives and say, "Hey, calm down," because the whole cab could have depressurized and killed everyone. Boy, what a different story that would have been.
And you know, and it's great because what a different time too. Because you know, on plane rides or even bus rides, you know, no one's fucking wrestling
Yeah.
each other anymore, like things like that. And it's funny to like just hear stories like
It
that.
was it was weird because depending on who you listen to tell this story, it was more catastrophic. Like if you hear Heidi telling the story, the whole plane was falling apart. You hear Mike Chioda tell the story, and parts of the plane were falling apart. You hear Jim Ross tell the story, and two guys were just roughhousing. Like, depending on who's telling the story, there's a completely different story.
Right, and you have to feel bad for Jim Ross in this situation too. Like, I
Yes,
mean, you have to when he's talking about a lot of it.
yeah, you could tell that Jim Ross has a lot of guilt because he was the director of talent relations or whatever. Like, his job was to make sure that everyone was safe, that everyone, was happy. And man, I mean, this flight shows that his job was maybe not being done to the extent it could have been. At this point, they talk about how Brock Lesnar had flashed Terry Runnels. Once again, similar. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm sorry, I was clearing my throat. That's my fault. I'm sorry.
Similar to the Rob Van Dam statements from earlier, they really passed over this pretty quick. A blip came over the bottom of the screen where they said Lesnar was asked to come on, but he didn't. I have never heard that. I have never heard that Lesnar had supposedly done that to Terry.
And correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't it on the night of Insurrection? If that's the pay
Yeah.
per view name, it wasn't on the plane. It was on the
Yeah,
night of the
that
pay per
wasn't.
view.
Yeah,
Right,
that
right,
wasn't on the plane ride. That was the night of the pay per view.
right. Because then
So
Dustin goes to her and tells her
yeah,
don't sell it or
yeah.
anything.
So
Yeah,
he
right, right,
gives
right.
her- Yeah. So obviously, that's just an interesting. That's an interesting spot to throw that in there because you have to skip backwards for that. But yeah, very weird. I had never heard that before. Around this same point, Terry Reynolds' husband at the time, soon to be ex-husband, Dustin Rhodes, known as Goldust in the WWE, takes Heidi's microphone off the wall, like the PA system, and starts singing a song, Pledging My Love. And the boys described that it was very sad. Like, it just brought the whole plane down. Everybody was, like, depressed. And Heidi said that she knew that it came from a place of real hurt. Having said that, Heidi starts shooting on Dustin Rhodes. Heidi was pissed that he took her microphone, and we'll get into some stuff that happened to Heidi on this flight. Heidi seems the most pissed that Dustin Rhodes touched her microphone. Like, she was really upset about the microphone. So, getting into what happened to Heidi here right after, Ric Flair. Ric Flair would walk around the plane with his robe and nothing else, and he would do the helicopter with his wiener.
And he would woo. He would woo in the pros.
He would woo. And at one point, Heidi is up in like like the food area, the food and drink area, and very small way to get in and out. Ric Flair has her stuck, basically. He's standing in the doorway, and he's telling her to have a feel. She says that this went on and she felt very uncomfortable. She told him no, and at that point he grabbed her hand and had her touch him. And around this point, Dustin Rhodes came and got Rick away from her. So the guy
And then RVD also talks about watching it too from the distance.
And Dreamer, they talk
Right.
about watching it. Dreamer here defending Flair at every step, saying that Flair wouldn't do these things. If he wanted to, he could have, but that wasn't him. Like, Dreamer really dislikes Heidi, and we'll get into that a little bit more towards the end of the episode. It seems to me like Dreamer is doing this episode solely to take away from her, which is weird, because Dreamer's, supposedly such a nice guy that
And you're right.
You wouldn't think that, you would think that he would be able to admit, like, what was happening was wrong. And unfortunately, that wasn't the only thing that would happen to Heidi. She would pass by Scott Hall, who would grab her, and Scott Hall said that he felt like he was drugged because he never acts this way. And
he always knew he said how to handle his stuff, and that is a big thing for like a lot of those guys, and you really never know.
But Scott Hall at this point was also an alcoholic. I mean, this was the
Right.
height. This was the height of alcoholic Scott Hall.
And then mixing pills and alcohol together makes it just that much worse.
Whatever was happening on the plane, we can't speak for, but yeah. So Heidi says that at one point, Scott Hall had grabbed her and pulled her in, and he had started telling her things, and he proceeded to lick her, and the only reason that she was able to escape is because he passed out and went back to sleep. So at this point, Heidi decided that she was done. The flight still had to go for, I think, another couple hours. They didn't really give us a timeline. So she just locked herself away from everything and didn't come out the rest of the flight. So finally the plane lands a little bit later. Michael Hayes wakes up and he's literally trying to fight the whole plane. He wants to know who cut my hair. He's pissed. Michael Hayes is pissed off. The flight attendants' crew are, once they hear everyone leave, they come out and they begin cleaning the plane. There's blood, there's hair, there's vomit, and they come across syringes. And Heidi says, "Listen, we're not cleaning this. There's gonna be an investigation. We're not cleaning anything. Put everything down." She calls her superiors, and her superiors tell her basically to keep all of this quiet, and that it's not her job to prosecute these people, and that they run this high-end sporting airline. And yeah, basically just saying, Heidi, keep it to yourself.
And then this is the worst part, or not even the worst part, but you have to feel bad for her.
Yeah.
In a lot of these situations too, because not only is she really the more credible witness out of everyone, but and being honest, but then you just feel bad about everything, and then now she has to keep it under wraps.
So there was another woman on the flight, who I believe was also a flight attendant, who decided she was going to sue. and she told Heidi, "Listen, you should do this with me, class action." And they did. They sued the WWE, and they were rewarded a settlement. Um, and this is where Tommy Dreamer really begins burying Heidi, which is just really distasteful, I think. I don't know why they kept that stuff in this episode. It just felt weird to me. Um, it is important to note that other than the settlement happening, there wasn't much as far as punishment. There were 3 firings. Kurt Hennig, who was one half of the big fight, of course, Scott Hall, and Gold Dust, Dustin Rhodes, who I feel so bad for Dustin Rhodes at this point. Like, the dude was getting a divorce. He took the microphone, sang a sad song, made everyone feel sad. The only thing that he did on the plane that caused damage was he took his tobacco spit and spit into the pouch on the back of the seat, which is gross, which is terrible. But compared to some of the other shit people were doing on the plane, is unreal to me. And credit to the folks at Dark Side, they asked Jim Ross, why did Ric Flair get to keep a job? And his response was, for lack of better words, Flair was a made man, and because of that, he got a pass. There's talks of Ric Flair coming to AEW. I see now why we've waited to have Ric Flair debut in AEW.
And we will see if this stops it or not. I'm interested to see where this goes going forward.
I mean, yeah, I guess we'll
Because
see.
I was originally excited for him to come on to AEW, and now we won't know if he actually will.
Oof. Yeah, so Ric Flair had done an interview with Renee Paquette, formerly Renee Young, on her Oral Sessions podcast, where basically he knew that the Dark Side was happening, and he said that he has information about everyone who was there, and that if it ruins his career, he will take everyone down with him. So we might have an exciting week in wrestling news. But that was the second half of Season 3's Dark Side of the Ring. What did you think, Adam? A pretty decent episode, right?
It was. It was. I think it was a pretty decent episode, and I think it did a good job of presenting it. Even though we didn't have Sean Waltman, we still had a couple you shoot clips and I think it. I think it was just a good episode and a good way of presenting this all around. I think and it's good we can finally have something to where if someone wants to find out about it, they can just go watch this instead of probably asking legends or trying to go digging on YouTube clips to find the real truth.